Hi everyone! In this video I'll show you what I think is the fastest way to draw a realistic portrait, which is the reductive technique on toned paper. With this technique you tone the paper first instead of using white paper, which allows you to quickly build up value by pushing the darks with a pencil and pulling out the lights with an eraser. I love this technique because it's fast and it allows you to create drawings full of depth and atmosphere. I'll walk you through the tools, the setup, and the entire process step by step, so without further ado, let's jump into it. First things first, we'll need to prepare our paper. For this technique, you really want to use good quality paper that can take a lot of erasing and doesn't tear up easily. I'm going to use Canson Edition, which is a double-sided 100% cotton paper with 250 GSM thickness. It's originally meant to be used for printing, but it also works perfectly for pencil drawing. Once I've cut the paper to the size I need, it's time to tone it. I'm going to use charcoal powder by Cretacolor, which, as I recently found out, is a local brand produced here in Vienna. I pepper a bit of charcoal on my sheet of paper and then gently spread it and work it into the grains with a paper towel. Keep in mind that this is quite a messy process, so make sure to clear out your desk before you start. I keep wiping out the extra charcoal until a smooth middle tone has been created and there's no loose charcoal particles. Toning the paper creates a middle ground to work on, so you're not starting from a pure white surface. It's basically the same as toning your canvas to get rid of the white, but it also gives you more tools. Let's go over the rest of our tools. I'm going to use this Nitram sanding block for sharpening my pencils, and as for the pencils, you want to have a good variety. I'll use a range of pencils from 2H to about 5B, using Blackwing pencils for my darkest shadows. Most of the drawing is typically done with HB and 2B pencils though. I'm also using 3 different kinds of erasers: a kneadable eraser by Faber-Castell, a Tombow monoline eraser, and a normal eraser. I usually sharpen my pencils with a box cutter, which allows me to sharpen them to a fine point and avoid sharpening them too often throughout the process. Once you've cut off enough wood and exposed the lead, you can sharpen your pencil to a fine point with a sanding block, which will help you avoid accidentally breaking it with your blade. I start my drawing by establishing the main proportions and finding where the big shapes will sit. I almost immediately jump to HB because the marks left by the 2H pencil are not easy to see on a toned surface, and they can leave unnecessary grooves in the paper because the lead is so hard. One of the coolest things about this technique is that it allows you to draw with your eraser as much as you can draw with your pencil. This lets you carve out 3D shapes on your paper in no time. The bottom line is that toning your paper makes it easier to establish both light and shadow because you can push the values darker with the pencil and then pull them lighter with an eraser. This really helps speed up the process because you can build up value and depth really fast. Your middle tones are already there, so all you have to worry about are the lights and the darks. Oh, I forgot to mention one of the most important tools I'm going to use, which is a blending stump. With the reductive technique, you can use the blending stump as a dual-purpose tool because you can use it not just for softening your drawing, but also for erasing parts of it. It does this by smoothing out the charcoal and allowing it to cover your lines, so it acts almost like an eraser here. With the combination of these tools, you have a lot of control over the edges and the overall drawing, which is one of the reasons I love this drawing technique so much. At this point, I'm starting to work on the facial features, and you can see how easy it is to sculpt them out in a way that shows volume. Instead of thinking in terms of flat lines, I'm treating each feature as a three-dimensional form and think about how the light hits it and where the shadows will be formed. As you can see, I also jump around a lot, trying not to focus on a single area for too long, because that can give you tunnel vision, so you forget to compare it to the rest of the drawing. I'm slowly building up my values, adding more tone to the shadows and lifting the charcoal with an eraser in places where the light hits her face. At the same time, I'm gradually making the lines more precise, trying to achieve her likeness as I work on the drawing. There's no pressure to do so right away because likeness usually emerges on its own as the proportions, values, and edges all fall into place. That's why you want to start with softer lines and not use your darkest pencils from the get-go, or say erase the charcoal all the way to the white of the paper, because once you commit to those extremes too early, it becomes much harder to adjust if something looks off later on. At the same time, as one of my teachers likes to say, there's nothing to correct if you don't have anything on your canvas yet. So don't worry about the likeness and the details at the beginning, just focus on getting something down and building up the drawing step by step. By keeping your marks lighter at the start, you give yourself the freedom to shift the features around and refine the structure until everything fits together perfectly. In this drawing, I really want the focus to be on her face, so I'm creating the illusion of detail in places like the ruffles of her dress or the candles around her. The reductive technique can help you suggest complexity without having to render every single detail. I'm putting in some pencil marks and pulling out just a few highlights with an eraser, but the forms already read as detailed even though they're mostly just abstract shapes. At this point, we have a pretty solid base, so you'll see me working on pushing the details in the areas that will be our primary focus, which is her eyes, her mouth, the main planes of her face, the neck, and the shoulders. This is where I start reaching for my darker pencils to establish the deepest shadows. At the same time, I'll use the eraser more deliberately to carve out sharper highlights, and I'll also keep using the blend and stamp to preserve the overall softness of the drawing. I'm treating the hair the same as the ruffles, suggesting texture and volume without getting lost in every individual strand. A few darker accents with the pencil and some lifted highlights with the eraser are usually all it takes to make it read as hair. The rest I keep fairly abstract because too much detail here would pull the focus away from her face, and we don't want that. The background comes together very fast. It is the most abstract part of the drawing, and keeping it vague will give this piece more atmosphere and a sense of mystery. That ambiguity helps the portrait feel more alive because it leaves some space for interpretation. I quickly wipe away the charcoal to create the illusion of candles that seem to float in the air. At the same time, I'm also darkening the area around her face, which not only helps push her forward, but also creates an illusion of depth, almost like she's emerging from the shadows. Now, with a few finishing touches, our drawing is done, and it's time to sign it. So that's the reductive drawing technique. I really think that this is the fastest way to draw when you want to create realistic, three-dimensional portraits without having to spend hours on building up the value and working out the tiny details. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions, and feel free to share your own favorite drawing methods. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel for more art shenanigans, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!